Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the I Am 1-2 podcast with your host, Christopher Cohn. With us, as always, in the studio is my good friend Dan, the man who makes all this happen. Please send some shout-outs to him on our email, because without him, this would not be occurring. Right now, he's arranging all the microphones and doing some business in the background. Say hello to the peeps out there, Dan.
Hello, everyone. You're going to enjoy this podcast for sure.
Yes, you are. We have a very special guest in the studio with us today. We have our good friend Shannon. Welcome to the podcast, Shannon. So glad you're here. We want to bring people in on a rotating basis from different backgrounds and different histories so that eventually we hope somebody's story will touch your heart and inspire you to seek a path of recovery. And I know Shannon has a wonderful story to share, so very happy that you're here. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank
So
you.
we'd like to start with the most important date of all in our life, our sobriety date. What is your sobriety date, Shannon?
Mine is March 14th, 2019.
And I always like to ask people, now was that by design, by accident, or how did that happen to be just the 14th? You just ended up crashing and burning that day?
I can't remember exactly why it was that date, but I can tell you I had already lost my kids by that point. I was trying to get off these medications that I was taking. Really, they were not. They were just, another outlet for me to get high. But I was having seizures pretty regularly, and when my neurologist started lowering me off my medicine, I was ready. I was just ready to do something different. I just wanted my kids back, and so that's what that date was. I just got off all my medicine and was like, okay, I can do it now.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a huge step ahead in one day.
Yeah.
Some people's a little more gradual. I had to go through a couple of treatment centers, but you were just ready then at that point. Enough's enough, so to speak.
I don't think I was ready at that point, but I think looking back, I think I was ready. You can, obviously the work and everything's hard. And I don't know if I was really ready to put the effort in, but I did it because I wanted something different.
Good. I love that. So if there's anybody out there that wants something different, I promise you, this is available to you. Just listen up. We'll help you get there. So we'd like to start back at the beginning. Where did you grow up? Tell us a little bit about your family, brothers, sisters, etc.
I grew up in Louisville in the Highlands, and, I really had a good family. My parents worked. Mom was a stay-at-home mom for a lot of my life. She taught kindergarten, so when we went to kindergarten, she taught kindergarten. And then when we no longer went to kindergarten, it might have been pre-K and kindergarten, and we would stay home with Mom. Mom would stay at home. Dad worked 60, 70 hours a week, owning his own business. Really, it was just, a normal, I don't know what normal is, but normal to me, household. I had a twin sister. I have a twin sister.
Really?
And
identical or fraternal?
Fraternal.
Do you all feel each other occasionally? That little vibe they talk about, that twin share?
I can...
Intuition?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not as strong as people identify it as, but I do believe that I can see certain things that I notice in her that I would not notice in other people.
Yeah. That's really interesting to have somebody start your journey right at the same time that you did.
Right.
Same birthdays.
Yeah.
Did your parents try to separate them so y'all didn't feel gypped that y'all each had your own day?
Oh no, we dressed up the same and
Did
everything.
the same everything.
Yeah.
So you were very close
together. It was not
together.
fun. No, it was not fun growing up. But as we got older, we got closer. But growing up, we fought like cats and dogs.
Really?
Yes.
Okay, we'll get into that. So, your dad being the business person, were you a Highlands hippie dippy chick growing up? And the Highlands in Louisville here has a vibe to it that's sort of,
I would say that I still am somewhat, I eat that type of food, but I'm not as free and yes. I don't go out and do the dumb shit I used to do.
You don't hug trees. And,
But I definitely, my mom was that way, so I definitely got some of that from her.
Well, I live in the Highlands today. It's my favorite part of town, so it's an awesome part of Louisville.
Yes.
All right, so you're growing up. Was alcohol around in the house like normal, or did you have anyone in your family that struggled with it or had issues?
dad drank, when he would come home, he would always have some type of bourbon. And I remember, like, you know, it was a daily thing. Like, he was whatever you want to call a functional alcoholic is. And he would go to work, wake up real early, go to work, and then come home, and he would just drink till he passed out. So
Every night?
yeah. And sometimes it was real bad. I remember telling myself one time, I was like, I don't want to be like that. It wasn't abusive. He just was not emotionally there.
Yeah, just checked out.
Yeah. He worked all the time, and then he was gone.
You know, it's interesting as therapists, sometimes when we see people doing that, and they may or may not be full-blown alcoholic or functional, whatever that is, but it's depression. And I wonder if your dad was going through some depression over something. Just check it out emotionally.
Yeah.
Okay.
Probably.
Were your parents distant because of that, I would imagine?
Oh, I'm sure. I know when he lost his dad and he gained the business, that was very stressful and hard for him, but I don't remember if it was around the same time. It was a lot of my childhood, so maybe owning the business was, you know, depressive for him. Like, it's hard work, you're the only one doing it, and maybe it was something along that. I don't know. I just know that that's what I remember.
It is interesting, though, that I can relate to the father passed out in the easy chair, step lightly around dad when he's drunk, you know, and in the mornings if he has a hangover, don't aggravate him, you know.
Yeah.
It's walking on eggshells is the term they have for that in adult children. So you would consider yourself an adult child of an alcoholic, even though it wasn't full blown.
Right.
Cops being called, plates being thrown, craziness.
Yeah,
right?
I mean, he was still spiritually sick. He
Yeah.
wasn't there.
Yeah.
You know, my mom was never the disciplinarian one. She would always say, well, you know, wait till your dad comes home. Dad would never do anything when he came home.
So you're off the hook.
Yes, that's it. I never really remember getting in trouble. He yelled at maybe once or twice, but never actually spanked or hit or any of that. So it was like there was no consequence for things. In reality, I knew when Dad got home, like, that threat was there, but as I got older, it was like not there anymore.
That's a dangerous prescription for an alcoholic, because I think I can get out of anything after that, right?
Right.
So let me ask you this: when your sister and you, that's it, right? No brother, sister, no brothers.
I have an older sister.
Okay.
I have a twin sister. My older sister, yeah. She's 6 years older than me.
6 years older. And when you have that age disparity, she's kind of pushing herself out of the house and getting busy dating and doing activities. Yeah,
she was always the fun one that we wanted to go do things with.
Oh, I'm sure. Absolutely. Older sis. The dynamic in alcoholic family systems is as soon as a child gets freedom shown to them, like for me it was getting keys to a car. I'm never home again.
Yeah.
You know, and I saw my sister do that.
Yeah.
I saw me do that. I saw my little brother do that. And my poor littlest brother was the one left behind.
Yeah.
But it's survival. I've been taught that through therapy. You just have to do what you got to do to survive the chaos yourself. So, were you lectured about don't do drugs and all that stuff growing up? Did you have DARE come to your school and show you the bad drugs and say, don't do them?
Yep.
And what'd you think?
The brain, when it's like, had so many, I don't know if it was from alcohol or drugs, but the holes in the brains. I remember it, but it just, you know, when I was using or when I would start trying things, that stuff was not relevant. You know, I was younger when they taught us that, so it was more instilled when you're in elementary school, right? And I didn't start using until like middle school, and so, you know, you forget about any of that.
You do. And there's that little voice that says, not me.
Yeah.
That's not me. I wouldn't do that crazy stuff. What are you talking about? Especially heroin and stuff. You're like, I would never.
Yeah.
But it is interesting. As a therapist, we're, you know, coached. We need to do prevention work. We need to have programs. And I agree, we do. But I don't know. I've got kind of a cynical take as I watch how effective. And almost everybody I've talked to about this says, I didn't get anything out of it. They tried to scare us, and we went out back and got high afterwards and laughed at it, you know.
Yeah.
So, and how many of y'all out there did that? Probably a few of you.
Right.
All right. So let's get to the most exciting moment of an alcoholic or addict's life. When was your first drink or drug? When you chose to do it, you got the effect.
So I was raised Jewish, and so we got to do Passover and everything. My family was real big. We would always go over to my aunt's house, and during Passover you get wine, and at a certain age you start drinking wine. I had my first glass of wine, and I remember getting completely hot. Like, my face was flush and everything, but I liked not feeling like, you know, I cared what my family thought, or I cared what my sisters were doing. And then they allowed me to have another one. And it was just like, there wasn't that much wine in there, but it was just that first initial rush, and I felt it. And it was like, I like this.
I'm going to define that not caring from my experience, freedom.
Yes.
And isn't it, what age were you when that happened?
Oh, geez, probably like 13, 12, maybe.
See, to me, I think it's a spiritual awakening when we have our first drink or drug, when we really get the effect and our brain goes, okay, I like this, and this is different. And to me, it was what I'd been looking for my entire life. I'd heard people talk about church did that for them, or God did that for them. I never felt anything in church. I was just bored. I couldn't relate, and then I was scared. The priest scared me. But when I found that and it changed my insides, I was like, this is like a miracle moment. This is like discovering gold in a desert. So it got your attention, to say the least, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Now, I would assume at 13, did you have other activities you were into, like sports or after-school stuff? Or sometimes those can keep a kid from falling right into trouble.
No, not that I remember.
Okay.
Not then.
So did you put it in your head like, well, if I can get some besides Passover, I'm going to try to get some more wine?
Oh, I'm sure I did. It didn't. I didn't remember thinking that, but I also thought it was cool that I got to drink with my family.
Yeah.
I'm like, everybody
You're
else
an
is,
adult.
and I'm like
You're an
drinking
adult
with
now.
my family, and I'm like, well, that's cool.
This is another interesting, and again, as we do more of these, watch these parallels that keep happening. When I'm talking to my patients, it's always like an older person being like the older people. My dad gave me it and let me feel like an adult, or the peers group. You know, they were older and I wanted to be the cool kid. You know, as our good friend Bob Earl says, they could have told me, let's go kill the Spanish teacher. And because they were asking me to join them, I'd say, sure, let's go do that. So it's interesting how if we didn't have that influence, would you have necessarily gone in that direction? So, but yeah, it's a reinforcer is what it is. Like, okay, this is good. This is not a bad thing, nothing to be afraid of. It's definitely not heroin.
Yeah.
It's a glass of wine.
Yeah.
It's around a religious observance.
Right.
So this is like expected. This is family.
Acceptable.
Yeah, acceptable. There you go. All right, so your sister, did she have the same reaction, or did she sort of say, whatever?
No, I don't think she even drank any.
She's not one of us?
No, I was just like, let me drink some of this.
Definitely not an identical twin. Then.
Yeah.
That would have been a terror, two identical Shannons walking around the earth.
I know. Oh, absolutely.
All right, so how did this expand? Where did we go next from alcohol, maybe a little pot coming in or whatever? And
you know, I think that it led to just like it led to a friend. Well, I met a friend in middle school, and she had the capability to, her sister was older, much older, in high school, and her parents had about the same as me. Like they smoked, and they, you know, it was more socially acceptable over at her house. And so we smoked, and we would sneak out,
and run wild through the Highlands.
Yeah.
Haha, I know that very well.
Yes. Yeah, we did. Yeah, and I think one time we were sneaking out of my parents' house, and we live in a subdivision that's, you could say upper class, but it's right off of, it's in the Highlands. It's right off of like Brighton Drive. So we have cops that go in at nighttime, and he saw us and he spotted us with a headlight or his little like light, and we took off in the back of our neighbor's like yard or whatever, and we're hopping fences to get back to my house, and then we get inside and we're looking out the front window to see if like he saw us or he caught us or anything, and I'm telling you, we were running. And so he comes back and he's just like looking for us, and he came back again, and we thought we got away with it, and we were like, yes, you know, that didn't stop us from doing things.
So I've got good news, bad news. If anybody out there has that quality of getting that shot of juice from getting away with stuff, that's a dangerous concoction. And unfortunately for a lot of our friends, it'll end up in prison. That's why I personally relate to the jaywalker of all the three stories. Because he's getting away with it, man. He's proven I can do this, man. Yeah. I'm smarter than you guys. Yeah. So yeah, I had that ailment too. Which of all the drugs throughout high school was probably your favorite that you liked, what it did for you the best? And I also like to ask people, what did it do for you? What did you like about your favorite? What did it do for Shannon?
So, throughout high school, my friend Amy had an older sister, and she was already into like meth. And so in high
Crank,
school,
so it was more like crank, or was it meth at that time?
oh, it was meth.
It was meth, okay.
Yeah, and she would, snort it, or when she would go over to her boyfriend's house, she would smoke it with him. But she had some one time when I was back at Amy's, and I don't know what came about. She was like, "You want to try this?" And I was like, "Sure." I kid you not, I felt like glass just went through my nose. It was horrible. But that time I came home to my house after, hanging out with her for a little bit and rearranged my whole room. And, I didn't even think about, like, my parents being there or anything. It was just, like, I rearranged my whole room. It was up for forever. I was like, I want this here, this there, cleaned my whole room. And, it was just, like, something way different, and I didn't have a care in the world about anything. So it was strange, but it was, especially because I have ADD, and so I've been on Adderall like my whole life. So this was like a huge dose of like Adderall, and I was like, I can get shit done on this.
So you're up there. We have furniture moving, scraping across the floor, and bumping things. And they're like, "What is she doing up there?"
Yes, I don't even know if my mom like.
If you could have, you would have repainted the place.
Yes.
That's a very dangerous. That's actually one of the biggest hookers of that drug when I talk to my patients. Also, when people use opiate pills and they have that reaction, like, let's get busy, let's go to work, I can do lots of shit, I'm Superman. That's a reinforcer that's telling your body it's a good thing. Because look at how much I'm getting done, man. I can operate. I'm not drunk, falling over. I'm getting shit done.
Yep. Yeah.
So that was your favorite then, ultimately, at that time?
Yes.
Okay.
Like starting out, yes.
And what age were you about that when that glass hit your nose? Because you reminded me of Breaking Bad.
Sophomore,
they take those
I think.
hits and they're like, "Blah!" Their head blows off.
It's awful. Like, yeah, I was probably a freshman or a sophomore.
Okay. I know, right? And then we got that other aspect with the ladies, unfortunately, about, it's keeping me thin.
Yeah.
I don't have to eat.
Yeah, Adderall did that too. Like, if you would take Adderall, you wouldn't eat. And, I never realized how truly addicted I was to that until, in hindsight, you can see it now. But I mean, like, there was times walking into school, I'm like, oh, thank God this kicked in. And I was like, well, that doesn't, thinking back now, I'm like, yeah, that was definitely,
Now, any consequences anybody notice up till now that Shannon's changing, having some different things in her life, or just like, no, she's all right?
No, there was nothing. I mean, other than, so in high school, probably junior year, I went to a bar. I had a fake ID, and I went to a bar. And
Do you remember which one it was in town?
It was at Applebee's on Bardstown Road.
Okay.
It's no longer there. But it was on Taylorsville and Bardstown Road.
Yep, no, exactly.
Yeah. And so I went there, and I was drinking at the bar, and I was hammered. And I did not want to drive home. So I had this bright idea to not leave my car there, to drive to Seneca Park, which is not too far behind it, and to stop and leave my car there. And I asked a friend to come pick me up. I had no idea he was extremely inebriated. So we got near Furman Boulevard, which is right down, I think that's Taylorsville Road. He hit he went to go turn, and he was probably going like 60. So there used to be a tree in the middle of the median right there. We hit the tree, and I actually sliced my forehead open. I have a nice scar right here, but not until then was there anything like, no signs that I was doing bad, even though it was like drinking on the weekends every weekend and partying. But yeah, there was no like huge signs. That was definitely like a sign.
Did he total his car?
I don't know.
Did you hit the windshield, or what was
Yeah,
his car?
I hit the windshield, and I don't remember all of it. I think that like I used to have dreams of it, because I think I can remember some of it, but don't actually remember it. So I think I hit like the dashboard or the windshield, and then the dashboard.
Wow. Yeah.
My dad said when they were sewing me up that you could see my actual bone right there.
Wow.
My skull, I guess you could say. But
So, did they realize it was because he was drunk and then you were drunk, and that's why this happened? Did you get the lectures afterwards?
yeah, it was more like, we're just glad you're alive.
Well, I guess that's true, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
and they gave me a huge prescription of pain medicine.
Okay, here we go. Here we go. Okay, before we get into that, there is this thing I run into with my patients with sibling rivalry, that if one person's having issues and problems with drugs and alcohol and the other one doesn't, then they're the perfect one. So with your sister, while you're going through all this, was she the good grade, good perfect one, or?
Well, growing up, so Whitney suffered from ADHD, so she was flying off the handle.
Interesting, you both had a case of it. Yeah, that's interesting.
One time we were going down to go see my grandparents in LaGrange for Christmas. She's screaming out the window, come get me, trying to jump out the window.
Huh.
So it wasn't so much that, like, I was concerned with. Mom thought she was more, she was a better child than me. And it was really more, I don't remember thinking that. I remember thinking this is an outlet, right? This is something, I don't think my parents even knew the gratitude, or like the magnitude of what I was doing at that moment. But it wasn't that, you know, she's a good child and she, you know, I'm the bad child, because she had her problems as well.
Gotcha. So your parents had their hands full with both of you.
Yes,
okay.
For sure.
All right, so when you had those pain pills, girl, I know a little bit about your story.
Yeah.
How did that hit you the first time, in terms of like, okay, now we're talking?
I remember actually feeling awful. So like when my mom would wake me up to give them to me, like I would feel better. But as I started to feel better from like the surgery, and she was still giving them to me, I was like, oh, I like this. So it helped until, like, you know, I was getting better. And then when I could have not taken them, I still took them. Mm-hmm. Because I liked the way they felt.
There's something left. What are you talking about? We're not going to throw these away.
What are we going to do?
I mean, these are expensive. I could resell them even. So what was the effect for you? What did you like about those compared to maybe meth and other things?
I think, you know, as far as like the difference would be, because I do I have ADD. And so meth would be something that like I was so used to taking. It was so used to like the pain medicine. It was just like, it calmed me. Mm-hmm. Therefore, before, like I'm normally so anxious all the time. And the pain medicine would calm me.
That's a great point. If I'm used to it, this is something totally different. What I've related to is acid. Acid to me was off the graph different from anything I had ever done before. And that caught my attention hard. And again, at home, you might be wondering, you know, what are a couple of drug addicts, alcoholics talking about? It was great, because it was. And that's part of our story. We need to be honest about that. And when I am working with patients, and I would encourage everybody at home to do this, looking at how it laid its roots in you, this disease laid deep roots, right? And it's so hard to get people sober. And I think a lot of that gets missed in treatment is we're not talking to them about what you like about it.
Yeah.
You know, in fact, they get this idea that you're a bad dog. And I've heard people at meetings even say, I'm just not doing today what I should have been doing in the first place. That's a stupid statement. Mm-hmm. It's like, no, it worked for me. And it was great. Of course, I used it again. So did you become an opiate head at that point? Or did you have to work your way up to it a little bit?
Yeah, I think I started buying it from a friend after that. It wasn't much longer. But, you know, I don't know what made me think of this, but last time I spoke, someone mentioned to me that I was, even then, Dan did, when I would like buy pain medicine, mm-hmm. and I would go out of my party area and take it. Like I was selfish and self-centered even then, mm-hmm. and like I would mix it. And I would feel so much worse than everybody else. I'm like, how do you not feel bad? You know? But yeah, I started buying it from a friend then. And just the links that I would have to go to get it were insane. If the guy at work didn't have it, then I would go to all the way to Taylor Boulevard or Shelbyville or wherever. It really didn't matter. But, I mean, and they were so expensive. Mm-hmm. You know, they started out being like $6, but it depends on what you get, you know, like it was. Now,
were you in I don't know exactly date-wise, but were you in the OxyContin phase? Yep. Or you were, okay.
Yeah.
Before the Opanas?
Yeah.
Okay.
Before they stopped making them where you could actually snort them or whatever.
Right. Okay, cool. And how fast did your progression take off about needing more? Because usually most people report that's a speedy drug. That you get a little bit, I need a little bit more.
Yeah. I was at a friend's house, and her boyfriend's friend had some, and they left a whole Opana or an Oxy in the bathroom. And I was like, here.
Their mistake.
Oh, well, I'll share it with you because you were nice enough to give me some of it, or give me it back, right? And I do not remember that night. I don't remember anything. And I know I passed out. So it was like, I don't remember, like, I remember the feeling for a little bit, but I don't remember, like, it's like that rush automatically.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just like, okay, everything's going to be okay. You know?
It's really interesting. And with alcohol in the big book, Bill says, just the drink and then oblivion.
Yes.
And then oblivion. Now, that doesn't sound good to a normal person. They're like, oblivion doesn't sound like a good night. But for us, it's like, no, you understand. I get to leave planet Earth for a while.
Yes.
And all you people, leave them behind. I can just go do my thing. But it's a scary drug in that. And, it's astonishing the history of oxys being turned to opanas. And, they're honeycomb, so it's going to be safer. And it's like, no, they were worse.
Yeah, that's bullshit.
Yeah, total bullshit. And that's your drug companies. They made so much money on that, and they knew what they were doing.
And even when they was brought to their attention that they were doing that stuff, it didn't even matter. I mean, they made movies and episodes out of it after the fact, but yeah, they knew what they were doing, but they were making so much money off of it, it didn't matter what lives they took.
And it's a company, it's a corporation. I always tell my patients, you don't think Kellogg's knows how many boxes of cornflakes they're selling per month to the box? Of course they know most of it. And it's the same with the alcohol industry.
Yep.
They're making all that money on people's misery. I think it was, what did they say recently? It was 15% of the market for either benzos or something right now was going to abusers. So, in other words, they're not 15%. 15% of it was users, but they were carrying their bottom line. Like all those 15% were paying enough money to keep the company afloat. And that's true, though. But we're not talking about in the news. They didn't bring up about alcohol.
Yeah.
It's the drunks that are keeping them in business.
Yeah.
Buying it every day, not the person who buys it once a year for Christmas.
That's what I was just thinking. Like, how often do you buy it for every holiday? Derby or Christmas?
Unless you're a daily drinker, correct?
Yes.
All right, so what a train to get on. Did you graduate okay from high school?
I did.
Okay.
I did. I was not in, like, the AP classes or anything. And when I graduated from Atherton, and they were all in international baccalaureate and AP classes. Everybody, who was anybody was in those classes. Huh. I was good just showing up to school. I co-opted, so I wasn't there much on my senior year. And, at least I showed up and was doing things. I mean, I would go outside and smoke a cigarette. Even when I'm not supposed to, but we had a sheriff, and, as long as you were considerate and kind to him, he'd let you do what you wanted, because I guess he knew that there was no point in, reprimanding you. You're going to get, if you're doing that stuff, you're going to, at some point, you will get, I don't know what his thought was, but that's what I would think, He told me one time I was smoking in my car, he said, you need to get back inside, and I was like, okay.
He's trying to do his job. To do his job. Now, if I had asked 18-year-old Shannon back then and said, look, I have a magic wand, and I can wave this and give you any profession, any career. You can do anything you want with your life. Just dream big. What would have 18-year-old Shannon wanted to do with her life?
I graduated wanting to do teaching. Teaching children.
Mm-hmm. Like your mom did.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Did you want to specialize in a certain, like, special ed or young kids, older kids?
When we co-opted, one of the special ed was not something I was interested in, but we did it. It's a lot of, like, it's just not for me. And so, I don't know, I always, maybe younger kids is what I imagined. Mm-hmm. But that's what I went to school for. And I guess I changed afterwards, but that's, I did a lot of, there was an elementary school right by my house, and I would go there and co-op, and I liked it. I liked the kids. I liked everything. I think we got to shadow every grade for a little bit, and help out, or a teacher's assistant, whatever you wanted to call it. But it was fun.
I have a lot of teacher friends, and they'll jokingly, everything's humor, guys. They'll say, yeah, right about 5th or 6th grade, then they start turning into little terrors.
Yes.
But up until then, it's fun to work with them.
Yes.
Yeah. What do you think about... it makes sense, though, that with ADD that you wouldn't want to work with special ed because it's a lot of chaos with special ed.
Right? And it's a lot more work, I feel like. I think that's where my mindset
We got to have
was.
Nicole on the podcast. But
Yes, that's what I was thinking of when I said it. If I'm all the way honest, it's a lot of work, you know?
Mm-hmm.
I remember one kid, he would slobber everywhere, and I was like, I do not want to touch that. But that's just me being mean about it, you know?
No, you're being honest.
Yeah.
It's okay if you have a tolerance and says, that's
Yes.
not my thing.
It's not my thing.
You know? I mean, I'm a drug counselor, but I'd rather not clean up your vomit. You know what I
That's
mean?
kind of, it's about where I draw the line.
All right, so did college come next? Go to work come next? What was the plan?
College came next. I did go to college at Jefferson Community College. I think there was one on Stone Street, so it's out Dixie. And I did my prereqs okay. I think I went to one semester and did all right. And then the next semester, I was taking anatomy because I changed and wanted to do nursing. I thought that would be cool.
Yeah. But all around helping people, I'm noticing that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool.
And so I remember taking anatomy, and there was a quiz. But of course, like in any other class, you're supposed to study a couple of times, like through the week or whatever. I took a shit ton of Adderall and decided I was going to stay up all night and study and get everything and be able to pass the test. Me and a friend. We were working at UPS, going to school, and that failed epically. So, I think I might have got 14 right on that test. Because they're so in-depth on some of that stuff, and you're trying to cram it in there. I was like, it's the insanity that I had on that. I was like, what the fuck was I thinking?
Body part names and blood cells, you get down to that level, and then even when you get to neuroscience, they can just rattle, some of these doctors, they can rattle those words off like it's nothing.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting there going, it sounds like gobbledygook.
I'm like, can we not talk in doctor language?
So, all right, at this point, would you have considered yourself, if anybody had come up and said, Shannon, you might have a problem with alcohol and drugs, or are you just in your 20s doing what everybody does in their 20s?
I think that I felt invincible. Like, that was not,
Okay.
I didn't really feel like I had a problem. Maybe, obviously I couldn't even go through school at that point or anything, but yeah, I wouldn't say I had a problem.
Okay. Well, so did the rave scene, had that come and gone by then, or was that part of your story too, the clubbing and all that?
Yeah.
Clubbing and or going to festivals. It's usually one or the other. The festivals came a little bit later.
Didn't do like festivals. I didn't get to do like Bonnaroo or festivals or anything like that. Like, but we did do like, I would eat shrooms and go over by Bowman Field and like, to do like, we'd have this open field and we would, get naked and like just shoot.
Of course.
And do like, just acrobat stuff, and it was insane,
On shrooms.
Yes. There would be like 10 of us.
Now, is this on Bowman Field actual property?
Yes, right on Bowman Field property.
And they had no idea.
No. We didn't
That's
go
funny.
in the gates, because I don't know how that would have ended, but there's that golf course right there next to it, and so you could, like, it open field.
Mm-hmm. True. I know exactly what you're talking
Yeah.
about. So, yeah, today with the federal laws, going in the gate would not be good.
No, right? I'm sure.
After the terrorist attacks. All right, so what point, we like to get to the point of, when did things start turning bad for you and you started noticing you thought, maybe I have a problem here? What happened consequence-wise?
I think that when I first noticed that I had a problem was I met my ex-husband, and he had a prescription for pain medicine, and he was feeding them to me. You know what I mean? Like, and with no problem. I got pregnant. And when I could not stop using, I was like, well, I have to. Maybe I was like, I tried to cut down, and I felt awful. There was so much stress and so much in that labor. Mine and his relationship wasn't great, but I knew I had a problem. Like, I knew I could not stop. But at that point, I didn't realize, like, I didn't know it was going to hurt her, or I didn't look at the risk or anything. I just knew I couldn't stop. So I would, like, go down to, like, 1 a day or, whatever. And then back then, they didn't do drug tests as much as they would drug test you, but they didn't do the meconium test as much. Like, they didn't test it or whatever. Mm-hmm. I don't know. By the grace of God, Savannah was not born addicted.
Mm. They went through the phase with the crack babies, and I think that was the focus for a while.
Yeah.
So I know what you're talking about, and I want to describe this for the people out there, because I was listening to the speaker recently break down that powerlessness and having no will. Mm. No will, to tell people think the drink through, that's a joke. I mean, I don't even know why we have these stupid sayings. There used to be a sign up at the Token 3 Club that said, think, think, think.
Yes, there was.
It's the worst thing you can do.
Yeah.
I used to tell people, and when they demolition the place and open up a new one, somebody got the picture. I've got that sign that says, think, think,
that's
think.
awesome.
I got it at my office.
That's awesome.
But, this loss of control and trying to explain it to normal people out there. They're like, I've never been out of control in anything in my life. What are you talking about? I know what I'm doing. I make decisions. It's like, no, you have an actual virus in your brain that Bill says in the big book, no mental defense. I've got no mental defense that out of nowhere, I just go drink and I sleepwalk to the bar.
Yeah.
And I could have every intention. The guy said in the talk, you can hook us up to a lie detector. We have every intention to stay sober that day.
Yep.
And then just take a left turn.
Yes.
And it's like, why?
Yeah. I know. I think I've asked my sponsees once or twice, and they call me and they're like, I drank, and I'm like, why? That's my first initial thought. I'm like, okay, so let's really get into this. Let's see but I do it. I'm just as guilty.
I know, and even as a counselor, but cunning, baffling, and powerful. Bill chose those words very carefully, and that baffling is what I was feeling when you were describing that. Like, I'm pregnant.
Yes.
I don't want to be doing this, and I know with every fiber of your being, you did not want to do that.
No, but
and I also know that every fiber of my being, taking one was a horrible day.
Yes.
Trying to do that for yourself,
or just even try to not take any, and just the fear of the detox was unfathomable. Like, I couldn't. I was like, man, I would rather not be sick. You feel like your skin's falling off of you, you're coming out of your skin, you could throw up piss and shit all at the same time. Like, it's awful. And pregnant at the same time, I was like, I'm not doing this. The fear of it, I think, held me captive for so long, and I didn't even realize it. I just was like, I don't want to do that.
That's the extra hook with that drug, is the withdrawal. And I went to a training one time where a guy said, I think it would serve our profession well for everybody who's never experienced that to have to experience that at least once. So they would be more compassionate to people and inpatient,
Yes.
Because, I've heard people say, it's the worst case of flu you ever had. I felt like I wanted to die, all that shit. And you're just like, yeah, I get you. But I don't get you.
Right.
I mean, the drugs I was on, they were psychologically fucking up. I was fucking on with my skin. But I wasn't, like, physically like, ugh, I'm dying. Right?
Right.
Yeah.
I feel like you can't, if you don't, sometimes in this aspect, if you aren't there and you haven't been there, you can't understand.
I agree.
But I mean, police officers make the other police officers tase themselves so that way they understand. So, I mean, I think that you should have to have some knowledge of what it's like.
Especially when somebody has to detox in jail, the cruelty of the officers, having no empathy for what they're going through.
Yes, and if they die, they die is what the way
awful.
They think about it. Like,
it's so awful.
Like we're not human.
Because they literally think we're choosing to do it.
Yes.
I have people in my life who think I'm choosing to be sober today. You know what I mean?
Yes. Yes.
It's like, this is not a decision, folks. I have a disease.
Yes, I know. When I first started this job that I'm at right now, my foreman was like, so you don't drink, you don't use any drugs or anything? He was like, how do you do that? And I was like, he said, you chose to do that? And I said, yeah. He was like, how? Like, I'm baffled, like
astonished.
What?
Like you're a miracle of nature. You're like, what is this? What?
Yes.
I literally had a patient, funniest time, when I said I was 41 years sober, and everybody's I'm just talking, and in the chat it comes up and says, not even a beer? And I lost it because I'm like, why would I want one beer, dude? In 41 years of doing nothing, do you think I'd really go for one beer?
I've never had just one beer.
No.
Not one
What's the
time.
point? Well, you see, and that's the difference between us and the normal people. My mother, because of her medical stuff, doesn't drink caffeinated coffee.
Okay.
And I'm like, what's the point?
Right? That's true.
Why would you bother?
Yeah.
Because we have a mind that's for the effect.
Yes.
And Bill says that in the big book, the effect is everything. Why bother doing it if I'm not going to get juice out of it?
Yeah.
So, all right. So, good. That was horrible. I'm sorry you had to go through that guilt and shame, but also it got through to you that I have something going on here that I'm not in control of,
Yes.
right? And then where's that in your timeline before you got sober? A few years before? A few months before? Or?
Okay, so Savannah is 10 years old, and I've got 6 years sober.
Okay.
So it was several years of pain before I even realized that I needed to get sober. And then...
Did you even know what that meant?
No.
Like AA and
I didn't.
NA
I
and
had
sobriety?
no knowledge.
I didn't either.
I was like, what is this? So when CPS came in after Sophia was born, they were like, you need to go to JDAC. You need to go get help. Because they couldn't understand how I was getting pain medicine in my system. But I don't have a prescription and I'm not getting it. But Steve has a prescription. Like, they knew something was going on. But they just were like, okay. So they sent me to JDAC. And I was there for 2 weeks. But I'm having this mentality that I was like, well, if I stay in here the whole time, and I don't go back out. I remind you that I had a brand new newborn I got to take home for 1 day. Mm-hmm. And she went to my sister's because my ex-husband couldn't take care of her. So at least she had love and compassion. But, so I was like just sitting in there, afraid to come out because I didn't know what was going to happen. So I was like, I'll just stay in here as long as I possibly can. And I think the longest that you could say was like 2 weeks.
Mm. Yeah, it reminds me of Catherine's story, which we've had on the podcast, and she talks about when she got a DUI after 1 week after having her baby.
Oh, yeah.
Taken away from her child. It's awful. It's probably the worst thing could happen.
Yep.
It's so important to have that bonding time in
Yes.
the early birth. So...
I feel like that's why my oldest is so much more loving and compassionate, because she got that love and compassion. Mm-hmm. And Sophia is loving, but she's just not... She's more rigid. Mm-hmm. So she's like, I can take on anything. I can do anything.
I can send you a
she's
video.
Sassy.
I'll send you a 10-minute video on that, on attachment disorder.
Okay.
And it breaks down the 4 types. So you could probably identify her in the exact types. Yeah. But what they're talking about is the first year of childhood, whether you got enough held enough, whether you were affirmed enough, whether your parent was emotionally responsive to you. And again, with an alcoholic father, that's a problem. He's not emotionally responsive in any way.
Yeah.
So, I'll send you that video. You'll get something out of it. You'll have to let me know what you think she is.
Yeah, for sure.
Because it's a weird thing. They crave the attachment, but they'll act like they don't want it, or they'll kind of push it away. There's different types of how they handle it. Okay. All right, so let's get to the meat of the story. This is like the time in the movie when the car chase happens.
Okay.
Let's talk about the worst times of your addiction, your lowest points, your darkest moments. And again, it's interesting. I had the same experience. I'd seen movies about drunks and whatever, but and my dad was a drunk. I did not see myself in my dad. I'm doing different chemicals. I'm not my dad, right?
Yeah. Right.
Okay.
Right.
So AA, I was like, what is that? I didn't even know.
Yeah. Had no knowledge of it. And so once they made me go to JDAC, then they made me go to meetings. And Token was still off of Breckenridge Lane. And so I was going. But as soon as I got out of JDAC, they put me back on my ADD medicine, which I was abusing. So, and I was oblivious to this. I didn't realize one had thing to do with another. I had never really abused it before, but I had sometimes. So it was if that's all I had, that's all I had. And then there was something else they put me back on. And I was like, okay. So it just took no time for me to be like, okay, well, 1, what's 2, And then I'm not being able to breastfeed. I can't, take care of my kids. I'm real irritated all the time. and I can't eat. So I'm like, restless, irritable, and discontent all the time. So, and I think that they saw that, I think Savannah had some knowledge of me being a decent, not, the best mom I could be before that. But then Sophia was like, what is this person?
Mm-hmm.
I get mad at her for waking up early because I've been up all night. And she just wants a bottle. That's all that poor girl wants. And I'm like, go back to sleep! So.
My hat's off to you. And please take some solace in this, because I know the guilt and the shame that I've worked with my patients who have those experiences. You poor guys had that extra burden on you. I was just a single guy.
Yeah.
I just had to worry about me. I didn't have to worry about raising kids or keeping people alive. And what a burden when you're going through addiction.
Yeah.
To have to navigate.
Children.
Young children. Yeah, exactly right. That's insane.
Needy.
I got a guy in my group right now. He's got 4 daughters.
Oh, no.
And they're all young.
No.
And I'm like, oh, boy. You
Yeah.
need to get your sponsor's number on 911. You're going to need that.
You
all right.
asked me if what was my, the lowest
Yeah,
points.
your lowest point. I
So
love those.
when I moved out from being with their dad, I moved in and I bought a house. And I just remember sitting there thinking, I was so excited to take them to daycare. So I didn't have to be around them. So I didn't have to deal with them. And so I could sit there and get high all day. And I remember doing laundry, trying to navigate through just laundry. And I would have a pile of clean folded clothes on the couch. And I would go through these spurts. And it's like that, what I describe as that torture, our obsession. I would be like, okay, I'll take one more and I'll finish this and I'll get up and I won't take any more. It's that delusion. So I remember that stuck out to me because I just remember feeling so desperate. I'm like, why can't I stop taking these? And then I'll get started on laundry and then I'll be like, here I am taking another one. It's just that desperation. Like, what is wrong with me? Why can't I stop doing this? And then I knew that there was something wrong when finally my kids got taken, and rightfully so. They definitely didn't need to be with me. I moved in with my aunt. She was in Frankfurt on a farm, and it was a blessing in disguise. Me and her don't get along. Well, we didn't then because I was lying and everything to her, but we've gotten closer since I've done my amends to her. But I just remember it was like New Year's. And I was like, why? I don't care about New Year's. Just the sense of not wanting to live anymore. It was like, I don't have my kids. I don't have my family. I don't have anything. So what's the point of living? Just I felt so empty. So why am I living right now? What am I living for? All the things that I ever loved are taken away now. And just the feeling I remember. Not caring about holidays. Not just New Year's. It was almost to the point where I feel like it wouldn't have been long before I was like, do I really need to be in this life anymore? Do I really need to live here anymore? So it was I felt like I was graduating towards that. So I think that was my lowest point.
It's a misunderstood word, and I'd even have to look it up today to make sure the exact nature of what it says. But the nadir of despair, as Bill says in the big book, the very center of the center of the center.
Yeah.
And he talks about that in his story, and it touches me as one of the best parts of his story when he goes, was that crazy?
Yes.
For the lack of the ability, the proportion to think straight seemed just that.
Yep.
Well, maybe I should kill myself. Nah, Jen will fix that.
Yeah.
And that's where I say in my story, drugs and alcohol kept me alive many days.
Yeah.
When the option was put the knife to the wrist, and I'm holding the knife to my wrist, or just fuck it, just go get high.
Yeah.
If I hadn't had that option, I don't know what I would have done that day.
Yep.
And again, average people, you got to understand. We've been to hell. It exists, and
Yes.
it's real. Do our best. Like I said, I could have hooked up to a lie detector. You would have said you loved your kids. True. I want to be there for my kids. True.
Yep.
Let me get one more pill.
Yeah.
And the disease just takes you over there,
Yeah.
hijacking your whole system.
Yes, it does.
So did you get back to treatment, or how did you actually get sober?
So once the girls were taken from me,
Okay, that had to be horrible. Did they come remove them with the sheriffs and stuff, or how'd that go?
I think their dad took them at some point, and so they lied to me saying that, you know, I was at this house and that if I went and got stable, I was moving out of this house. I had foreclosed my home because couldn't afford it. And they lied to me and said, if you find stable housing, you can have your kids back. Sign this sheet. And I signed it, and I went to court for neglect. And I don't remember the full outcome of that, but I know that my sister got full custody. Steve couldn't pass a drug test, so Lauren had them for a long time until he could pass a drug test. I think they tested him every month until he could actually get them. And then, you know, I went through that whole dance with CPS where I had prescriptions and they would come and visit me. And I'd be like, I don't know where my prescriptions have gone. Someone came in and they stole my fucking prescriptions. I moved to a different place, and I was like, okay, I need to get sober. I remember going to AA, and I was like, my mom mentioned, she said, Shannon, you need to go to rehab. And I was like, I do not need to go to rehab. That's insane. There's nothing wrong with me.
That's insane. Not everything else is insane, but that is insane.
She was like, you need to go to rehab. And I was like, okay. And so I started going to AA. Started going back to Token. And then I met my first sponsor. And it literally, she was very forceful, and thankfully, because I just walked in with like a deer in the headlights. Like, I was just like, I don't know what I'm doing here. She goes, do you need a sponsor? And I was like, yeah. I was like, I do. And it just kind of took off from there. I think for the first, months, all I did was bitch about CPS and my ex-husband and how they did me wrong and how, you know, it was everybody else's problem until I really started doing the work. And
what would she say back to you after she listened? And she would say, you know, Shannon, you need to look at your part in this. Or what would she say to you after you bitched about everybody else?
I would call her on the stupidest of things, and she would be like, Shannon, that doesn't even make sense. What are you talking about? Like, you know? Kind
of like you said about somebody else we were talking about earlier.
Right. That doesn't make any sense. What are you talking about? And I was like, well, you know, and it just like the insanity where your mind is right then.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
But
just because I put down my drugs doesn't mean I'm well yet.
Yes.
And that's funny that the families get all excited, like, ooh, they're not using. That's when we are our most dangerous. In early recovery, I can do a lot of damage when I'm not on anything.
Yes. And you know, it says it in the big book that your family's afraid to talk to you about it even when you get sober. Mm-hmm. And I was like, my dad is the one who actually be like, all right, let's talk about this elephant in the room. So my mom would be like afraid to even approach the subject. Mm-hmm. You know, for the first year, she kept saying, Shane, I'm waiting for the other foot to drop. Like, you know, because I had done her wrong so many times. I had taken pills from her, knowing I wasn't going to give any back to her. And just, I had done her wrong so many times. She was just, literally, she was like, this can't be true. There's no way you're getting sober. So, yeah, for the first year, she was like, I'm just waiting for something else to happen.
There's really an interesting part of your story that I think will help a lot of people out there. That I went not knowing what it was fully. Mm-hmm. I'm like, okay, get a sponsor, whatever, sure. You just went along with the deal, and you're kind of doing it without even knowing you're doing it, and you were staying sober.
Yeah.
Isn't that funny? Everybody in my group, they think they have to buy in 100% up front. You don't. You just got to do the actions.
I know I've had sponsees that have to like feel like they have to get the God thing right
the
whole time.
I gotta believe in God or whatever. No, that's not required.
I was like, I'm just doing the actions. It was the weirdest thing, praying to God. I was like, literally, I was waiting for an answer every time, and I was like, oh, that's not how that works. And so, you know,
it would freak you out if it did. Like your phone rings and it says God, and you're like, wait, what?
So, right? But yeah, I don't know. I just did the motions because I was told to. And, you know, then I got a different sponsor because I needed something more. I wasn't getting what I needed out of it.
And about how many months in were you at that point?
I celebrated my year with her.
Okay, cool.
So, and then was weird how it aligned, but like Ross came in there and to Token, and
I want to know the first time you saw him or that you.
Oh, he was.
Here we go.
I saw him in a meeting, and he's in a suit, and he's sitting across from me, and he raised his hand to share, and he automatically starts crying. I was like, "Who is this dude?" He's in a suit that's too big for him.
Those are power suits.
Yes.
Yeah.
And he's crying. Like, you can't really hear what he's saying. And he's just over there bawling. And I was like, okay, But I was like, why are you, And then he came through Token again, and I was talking to him, and I was like, I'm getting ready to do my 4th step when I was with Jeannie. And he was like, I'm so excited for you. And I was like... Why? Like, I don't understand. He had previously just done his, and that's why I guess he had a different experience than I did, But
he had the juice.
Yes, and he was like, "I'm so excited for you," and I was like, at that point, I was still not really I was still not happy, right? I was still just going through the motions. That first year was rough for me, but I was like, okay, sure. I just thought he was really energetic, and not somebody I would ever expect to sponsor me. And then he needed a ride to work one day, and he was like, I was teeter-tottering about getting a new sponsor. And he was like, Shannon, I'll sponsor you if you want. He nonchalantly mentioned it, and I was like, okay, so I'll think about this. And I did. And I thought about it, and I prayed about it, and then I came back to him, and I was like, hey, I would like you to sponsor me. And he was like... Okay, so I think, he did what he was supposed to, called his sponsor and all that stuff. But, yeah, it was really, I look at it and I feel like it was God, just aligned us. Because it was definitely not somebody I would ever mix with. Mm-hmm. And his vibrant self.
So let's go over this for new people. Looking back, it was the absolute right decision. This was a godsend that Ross entered your life, right?
Yes,
okay.
For sure.
But we have these guidelines in the program where we say men work with men, women work with women, blah, blah, blah. Mm-hmm. Because a lot of people out there will take advantage of the situation. There's sick people in meetings. But we always have to keep in mind, I've learned as an old timer, we have traditions, not rules in recovery. So that means they're bendable. Mm-hmm. And that turned out to be the exact right thing that you needed. And there was no hanky-panky monkey business or any of that stuff. Mm-mm. And he became your savior, the guy that pulled you out of the madness.
Yeah, I needed someone who was very stern and kind of would tell me, call me on my shit and tell me about myself. And he did that, And another thing is, when you're going through the work, you really do get close and personal with your sponsor. And so I can see how somebody could take that in a whole different light. Me and him got a lot of shit for being a female and male sponsee. And people said, we were 13 stepping and all of that. But in reality, he's I call him Hitler because he's very, or a Nazi. He would give me my assignments and, then he would call and he would every day, he'd be like, did you do your 4th step or did you do this or did you do that? And honestly, I needed that because I didn't have the fire underneath my ass. I wanted it, I needed it, but I didn't have it. Mm-hmm. So, and another thing is so for a male to sponsor a female, I've noticed this recently, is, so as a female, we're very emotional human beings. So, especially in early recovery. And he wouldn't tell me I was crazy or anything. He doesn't understand a female's point of view or the emotions that are along with that. So, he would be like, so what character defect is that? These are God-given emotions that I get, right? And so instead of me just being able to, in a way, at first I was like, dude, this is just something normal I'm going through. But in a way, he could use it as a tool just because he didn't understand. Mm-hmm. And say, okay, what character defect? Are you being selfish? Are you this? Are you that? So now I can not just I run on emotion sometimes quite often, but I look at it in a different aspect. So, because most men don't understand females and they don't understand female emotions. Normally it's you're crazy, I don't understand you, or the normal, without being too explicit, is it your time? Mm-hmm. And so it gave me a different outlook on things, and it was able to use it as a tool rather than something negative.
that different perspective. So it's one of those ingredients in the mix that we can't just give it to you. It's sort of like it's more spiritual based.
Mm-hmm.
So for instance, I've sponsored several gay men, and it's worked out in every case except one, where he developed feelings, and I was like, that's not gonna work.
Yeah.
But one guy had terrible trauma from his childhood with men, and he was really terrified about coming to our men's group. And I just asked him, I said, would you be willing to try it? It's up to you. If it's too much trauma, then let's not do it. And he did. And that was the formula he needed to heal that. Isn't that weird?
Yeah.
That's that little mix in there where we can't be too rigid, guys, about our traditions. Because who am I to know the mind of God?
Right.
That Ross was the guy that was right in the right place, right time to save your life.
Yep.
Right?
Right.
Okay.
And I don't know what would have happened had I had a different sponsor, nor do I want to think about that. I just know that God placed him in my life, and that's just how things were supposed to go.
And timing, because
Yes.
he was coming out from doing the work himself. So he's on fire.
Yeah.
Right? That he's going to get you. You are
Right.
going to do the work, Shannon. He's not going to take
Right.
no for an answer,
Right.
right? Ross is a force to be reckoned with. You can see his podcast on
Right.
here if you want to look it up. All right, so now let's get to the good stuff. We get the kids back eventually. Tell me some of the good things about recovery that make it worth it for the people out there that thinking, I don't know if I want to do this. Oh, you want to do this, baby. It's the best thing that's going to happen to you.
So there's really so many gifts, but that recovery has given me. Some that really hit home are the ability to just emotionally and physically be there for my children. You know, they don't get that so much from their dad. Their dad is out. I don't know if he's in an active addiction, but he's definitely not emotionally there. Mm-hmm. And so they're able to come home and they're able just to spill whatever happens over there. And I'm their constant. Like, they know I'm going to be there, and I am there for them about everything. Any medical, I do all of the things for them. And I'm able to do that today. And then,
It'd be fair to say that you being sober has almost eliminated their memories from you not being sober.
Yeah.
Yeah, isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
Even in a short time. Don't lose hope, guys. You can fix this.
When I first got sober, they would tell me some things when I was in the madness with them, but, like, they don't mention it anymore. And sobriety has become part of their life now. Like, they come to meetings, and they're like, so how old is he? That's how they call it. So if I'm 6 years sober, they call it 6 years old.
That's awesome.
So I'm 6 years old, Ross is 6 years old, and so they're like, when we go to birthday meetings, especially at Spiritual Underground, they're like, so who's this and who's that? And, they use the lingo from sobriety. So, and in a sense, I'm grateful for that, because me and their dad are both that. So it's pretty good odds that they are too. Mm-hmm. So at least they'll grow up in the rooms with me.
Mm-hmm. And you're giving them that lingo rather than the lingo of TikTok or the lingo of the internet.
Right.
I mean, if I had had any of these tools, particularly I tell my patients meditation, my whole life on this planet would have been different if they had just taught me that as a kid.
Yeah.
How to breathe.
Yeah.
How to relax and not just relax for a second. It's astounding what you're giving them. They have no idea, and I'm anxious to see them as adults and what's going to happen in their life.
See the difference,
from you getting sober.
And
I always tell my patients too, no matter how old your kids are, they need their parent. I don't care if your kids are 30 now. You getting sober is going to help them as a parent to heal that.
Yes.
So don't lose that opportunity, because a lot of them are so dejected and it's too late and I've ruined their life. And
That's really, yeah.
You know what I mean?
I hear that a lot when they're like a little bit older. My kids were young, but when they're a little bit older, I'm like, they say, well, there's no changing them. Kids are resilient. Mm-hmm. Like, they can change at any point, and they'll have memories of it, and they might need therapy, but it's like they're pretty resilient to things. So I guess the most recent thing, my mom passed away in November. And so me being sober, and this was something that was devastating to me. So me being sober was allowing me to I use this to get closer to God and to try and change it in a different aspect. This could have taken me out. So I dug into my program and dug into therapy and dug into things. Like, there was some things I didn't know what grief was, and I don't truly understand it. But there were some days that I was terrified to leave work. I thought I didn't know what was going to happen. And I work in an industry where it's full of men. So being vulnerable in front of men and just be like, look, this is life or death for me. So either you're going to let me get on a meeting, whether I'm working or not, or, you know, that's what it's going to be. Because, you know, without having this avenue, I really think that I would have used this excuse to kill myself. Another gift that recovery has given me, and I see it every day. I work as a machinist, so I'm around men all the time. And so I get to deal with, so I say they're like big children. And they are. Like, some of my mom, like, my mom carrying things come out, I guess you could say. And, you know, like, I've gotten close enough to them now to where I'm comfortable. But there are some times when, like, new people come in who don't know me. I have to be distant. I can put boundaries up today because of recovery. And I'm so much more comfortable in my own skin that if I don't like you and you're saying something mean to me, I'm like, get the fuck away from my machine. So I can stand up for myself today. And before I wouldn't have. I came from an abusive relationship with my ex-husband, and I'm still dealing with some of that. But I can stand up for myself today. And that's truly what recovery's given me. To not put up with people's shit. And sometimes it's bad. Like, sometimes they're mean. I get some of the older guys that don't believe a female should be in the field and don't believe that, you know, that I should even be there. So they put me down as a machinist, as a female, and all of this, and I can at least be like, look, you know, I can show you that I can work here with you, and if I don't like what you're saying to me, you need to get away from me.
Nice. Very diplomatic. But what I really like is the boundaries, particularly when you said I'm very emotional. And you need to have those boundaries where you're not being triggered left and right, where you're breaking down at work every 5 minutes or something. Yes,
because when you're crying at work, and there is that stereotype, like, oh God, there's, you know, what's wrong with her today? Or if you know, they can't hear me if I'm crying. All they see is me crying. They're like, oh, automatically it's like nothing. I'm like, no, but really, this is what's going on.
Yeah.
So, no, I don't have an issue with that. And I think
awesome. This is what people don't understand when they're coming in, and I'm sure you didn't either, Shannon, that you're getting so much more than what you're giving up. You know, to us when we're sick, giving up drugs is like, what are you talking about? That'd be like giving up my heart. I can't operate without that. But just if you make this one sacrifice, you get the world in terms of growth for the person you want to be. Like, I don't know any addict or alcoholic who didn't sit around when they were using going, you know, why do I fucking do this shit? And, and why do I step up for myself? And why don't I speak my truth? And whatever that is. And it's like, dude, because you're not working on it. That's why. You don't have the tools.
Yeah.
So first of all, my hat's off to you. Working as a machinist in a male garage dominated thing is just like, holy shit, man. I see you like on the TV show Gas Monkey Garage and just being like, fuck you, I'm a lady. Deal with it. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And so kick-ass to you, first off, for doing that. And it's your passion. It's what you want to do. Where do you think you might want to go with some of that? Do you want to have your own shop one day, or have you thought about future goals?
So at the shop I currently work at, I'm almost a journeyman. So that means that I can work on any machine
That's awesome.
and do anything. So that means that I could work anywhere, theoretically, and make decent money. So I would like to be able to, I don't know, work in the field for a while, maybe be a foreman, a lead, learn knowledge, and at some point maybe go back to school and teach.
Work anywhere means you could literally just pick up stakes and move somewhere else. You want to live on the ocean or whatever.
Yeah.
Make money.
And the reason that the journeyman's so important is just because, like, I can show, because you look at me and you don't think that I know stuff. And it happens to me all the time. On paper, though, I know things. So I have the ability to be able to work anywhere. And so that's freeing for me.
No things, but it's physical too, man. It's a very physical job. So credit to you for doing that.
Thanks.
And hot, right?
Yeah.
You're welding and all that other stuff.
Yeah.
All right. So one thing I did want to touch on before we wrap it up and maybe get a little Dan feedback before we do that. You could do our listeners a great service, because I run into this with my female patients who have children. They cannot get over the guilt and shame of not being there, using when they were pregnant, losing them, everything that goes on with that. And, tell them there's another side that they can get out and that there's freedom. They hear it from me and they're like, well, you're a man, easy for you to say. But you have the experience, so I thought you might be able to share with them. Don't give up, because the miracle could happen for you too.
Yeah, so if you're just recently getting sober, you have untreated alcoholism. And so I had to remind myself of that many times, that, the mother that I was isn't the mother that I am now, and that I was just doing the best that I could. I couldn't help it, and I didn't know any better, but my kids are happy fucking kids today.
I've seen them.
So there is hope if you continue to do this the way that you're supposed to, just hang on and, just ride this wave. Sometimes it's hard, but the mom guilt is, sometimes it'll hit me randomly when they're picking up pictures for a poster board to take into school. And I look lit in some of the pictures, and I'm like, you know what? It's okay, because there's pride in being sober today, and all their teachers know, because they talk about it at school. My mom's an alcoholic. She's sober now.
That's awesome.
So, even if I look like that, that's just what it was at that point, But there's not guilt anymore. And that's just from doing the work. And your kids, they don't really remember a lot of that stuff. Mm-hmm. They know who I am today. Mm-hmm. And that's all that really matters.
Because shame kills. Guilt kills people. We've got to get that out of the way. Mm-hmm. And besides, I always tell them, if they're in my group and they are not buried under a prison somewhere or under a grave, God's already forgiven you. For sure. You're in this treatment group. God's already forgiven you. You have to forgive yourself. Mm-hmm. So thank you for that. Dan, I know we can't say enough shit about Shannon. We love Shannon to death. Your spirit is fantastic. Your juice is fantastic. And your kids are not only happy, but they're very well behaved, I think. They were listening to you when you were like, shh, stuff. So any thoughts, Dan, about our good friend Shannon over here, and then we'll wrap it up?
Well, I'm pretty sure, I'll tell you one of my favorite things, and you're one of them too, is to watch these sober people raise their kids. I mean, it just warms my heart. I've got a number of sponsees that got young kids, and watch them, from a father standpoint, and to be able to witness you because I think that's how we change the world. We stop breaking little kids. We allow them to have their spirits and allow them to bloom in the way God means them to, instead of trying to put the foot on them. When I was drinking, I wanted to, thought it was my job to make my kids do what I needed them to do,
Yeah.
And they were 8 and 10 when I got sober. So, and the same thing, it's repaired today, it's repaired. So I love that. Because I met you come into TSSR down at Unity Church. I'm almost certain that's where I saw you the very first time.
Yeah.
Do you know about how much time you had at that point? It felt like you was brand new, but I don't think you were. It sounds like you were going to the Token Club and stuff prior to that.
Yeah.
And,
I was like a year and something.
So it really was, yeah. You didn't have your kids back yet?
No.
No. Because I remember seeing somebody who was really hurting.
Yeah.
Really, really hurting. And you were so subdued, you were like a wounded bird kind of thing, you didn't talk much really, and you just looked so down, man. And that's what this does to you, and especially to get your kids taken away and all that kind of stuff, that will break you.
Yeah.
It will. And to watch the change that's happened to you, and watch how you flourished, and watch how you help people. And, I had the opportunity to celebrate your 6th birthday last Sunday at the Misfits and listen to the people talk about you, and you're a beautiful human being, and it's like an honor to get. I feel so honored to get to witness that. To watch that human being, this soul, get put back together from this broken state to what you're doing today. And I really think I love the fact that well, if you look right behind her, there's an Ohm symbol hanging on the wall, and Shannon made that for me. It was like laser cut on a
CNC laser.
Yeah. Did you brought it when you was on the podcast, didn't you?
Yeah.
Yeah, when you were on the Spiritual Underground podcast. So if you also want to hear some more about her, and I heard stuff today that I didn't hear then. That's another thing that's interesting is watch how you grow, because you were on it it's been a while.
Yeah. I was like 2 years sober.
And like how free you can be to speak about things today that you weren't really free to speak about at that point in time. Like the stuff doesn't weigh on you anymore, and it still did a little bit back then. So you probably kind of skirted some stuff and about what you were willing to share and that kind of thing. And I know you didn't do it on purpose. That's the same deal. Right. We don't do it on purpose, but it's what it is it's evidence of the amount of growth you've had even since then, and that we get to, I like that aspect, because next year you'll have grown more. And next year you'll have grown more, and there's no end to this. It's not a zero-sum game where you get to some plateau if you don't want to. And I know you don't want to. I watch what you do and how you work your program. I love your little girls. I just don't. I see some people are like, they were a little chatty, and them girls was talking, and they was over there at the birthday meeting at Spiritual Underground last week. Man, I personally, it's not loud enough to be bothersome.
Yeah.
It's almost like a joyful background noise of children playing and having fun, and I actually like it. There was a time that it used to bother me, but I've grown too. And not yours necessarily, but just that noise in the room. Usually at one point in my recovery, I used to be like, "Get them kids out of here," but not anymore. And I love you. It's just been a pleasure. I'm glad I know you. I'm glad I get to be around you. And it's just, you're just beautiful inside and out. And recovery has just done what it does to you, and you're just such a great example of that.
Thank you.
And I remember probably the first thing that struck me about you is your laugh. When you really break down and laugh hard on something, I love that. It catches my attention. Like that's real. It's a free laugh. It's a real laugh, and it's free.
Yeah.
And how people are like self-conscious.
Yeah.
And I like that. I like just spontaneous, honest.
Yeah.
Plus, you're so caring. I've watched you reach out to newcomers. You always make sure you greet them at meetings and you give them your number. And I've seen your interactions. They're very gentle. They're very kind. And again, for the new people out there, we have need for you. And so get over the guilt and shame. Get healthy as Shannon did. Get some help. And we can help you become the person that's now the person that's greeting the person at the door. And what do you think now when you see that new person come in? I'm sure it reminds you of where you've been. And you're thinking,
I'm grateful for them.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, it reminds me of where I was at some point and where I am now. Yeah. So like, I know there is hope for new people, and it also is just that remembrance of where I was, a couple years ago, and I am the same, like you said. I feel like I just have today. I know I have time, but I have today, and I think that took some time for that to sink in. We just have today. And I don't know if I can do it. Anybody can do it.
That's awesome.
But yeah, seeing the new people, I just know that there is hope for them, and it reminds me. And it's a great reminder. So,
It's no doubt that the people who sponsor people have something more than the people who don't, and we need them new people to come in so I can have somebody to sponsor, I need them.
Yes. That's the funnest part of getting sober.
It is.
Absolutely.
Is sponsoring somebody like you were talking about and watching them grow. I have two that have been with me I have one that's been with me for 3 years, and I've seen her whole life transform. And now she's got kids, and she's able to take care of she gets shit done. She was so timid and shy when she walked in, and now it's just a beautiful thing, the way that we change our lives like this. We become not only members of societies, but like we get our hearts and souls back. Uh-huh. It's like we're back in our skin.
Yeah.
It's so cool to watch.
Almost as if it's the way it was supposed to be if we didn't have addiction. Mm-hmm. That you get to be you fully. Mm-hmm. LJ gave up and talked about his history to the new guys a little bit. And I had tears in my eyes on Tuesday night because I was thinking about this guy that crawled into my car and he had no hope. He said, he was thinking about sticking a needle in his neck and ending it all. And, you know, to be able to walk through a person's journey is such a humbling honor. But it's the best part of recovery. So if you're not allowing yourself to have that, you do not know what you're missing.
Right.
You're leaving so much juice on the table, man, and there's such
Unbelievable.
deep insurance in your recovery, and it makes, you know, there's nothing that I do that fulfills my heart and soul as much as taking somebody through this work and building that relationship and watching them blossom.
Yes. I have best friends today.
Mm-hmm.
And if they don't call me, if they don't call me, I'm like, what's going on with you? They're like, what do you mean? Oh, I was busy. I was going to call you. And they really were, but I was just like, wait, why haven't you called me today? You know, because it seems odd without talking to them. And it's really cool that I can do that today. And that, like, you know, my kids like their kids and they like sleepovers. And, you know, it's like the best friend that I never had.
Now you're on that side of it. I'm working with people on this side of it, and this is what they're saying to me. You mean I have to call this guy every day?
Yeah.
It's like, oh my God, dude.
Yeah.
Seriously. The simplest thing in the world, and they can't even do that.
Yes.
And Dan even went through that recently where he went through some troubles and everybody was just responding with so much offers of support and love. He goes, I can't even keep track of replying to all these people. I'm trying to get my dad okay, but I'm going to have to reply to this. It's a gift. It's such a gift. So any last words for the newcomer or anything you would like to end on? You've done a great job here today. I love
You
hearing
sure
your
have.
story.
I always say trust the process. That was smashed into my head when I first started. And I never really understood it. But there's, you know, just going through sobriety. You're going to have good days, bad days. And, you know, not everything's freaking sunshine and beach days. But if you just hang on and trust the process, like it's built for, it's a design for living. And it does work. I'm proof. You all are proof. So as long as you just hold on and trust the process, not question every fucking thing, then you're okay.
I had a speaker give a visual. He says it's like when you're baking a cake and you keep opening the oven to see if it's baking. It's like, stop it, dude. Just leave it alone. It's working, you know.
Right. Yeah.
Well, thank you for being with us, Shannon. It's been a pleasure. You
Yes.
did an excellent job.
Thank you.
Your spirit really came through.
Thank you.
You did great. We like to end every podcast with the Serenity Prayer, but real quick announcement before we do. If you would like to contact us and maybe send us a question or a comment or anything, send us a little email. It's on this side. Hello. I am 12. The word recovery has to go after it because we couldn't get that brand. And then gmail.com. So it's I am 12 recovery@gmail.com. And we would love to hear from you. If we can help, we will help you in any way find the rooms. And we will help you find a sponsor even if you want. So give us a try. So let's end with the Serenity Prayer, everybody. If you would, prayer. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Just for today. Keep coming back. It works if you work it. You die if you don't. Woo-hoo! We love you. Keep coming back. Bye. Peace out.